Hiya, welcome back to the channel. So in front of us we have something a bit different. It's a bike, and I'll try and demonstrate what it's doing. So now it gets worse than this, but it's a bit lumpy and it sort of smooths out about 3,500 RPMs. And another thing that it's doing is sometimes is from one of the carbs, which you can't really see like this, it's weeping a little bit of fuel from the overflow. So I'm pretty sure we know what the problem is. So this video is going to be rebuilding the carburation devices on this bike. So let's make a start on that. And the first part of the process is going to involve taking the fuel tank off. So I mean, we'll turn the fuel to the off position, which is quite stiff to do. Look, it says off. That's off. We'll take out these factory OEM wood screws holding these panels on. They're not actually wood screws, they're just not the factory OEM screws, but they are the correct thread at least. So let's take them off. And once removed, that can pull away from there. That can do the same. We've got, and down the back of the tank, just pull that shitter off. And we've got a 6mm Allen key, which can just carefully remove. That's for the back of the tank. Now we've got two 5mm ones there. I mean, yours might have different fixings on. These are all bikes now, and people just put all sorts of shit in them. So I'm going to pull all these off. Now all them bolts are out. It is getting time to lift the tank off, but obviously the fuel hose is still connected, the sender unit is still connected for the fuel gauge, so we'll just lift it up as good as we can. Look, it's disconnected itself, that's useful. In fact, it's all disconnected itself. What a mint bike. So there, the fuel tank is now off. Now it is unlike that, yours will disconnect itself with such an obliging manner. So this is what you've got to disconnect. That is for the sender unit. That is the actual outlet from the fuel tap into the fuel pump, reciprocating fuel pump that just works off a pulse. It's a low pressure fuel pump that just tops the carbs up, and that's what you've got to disconnect. And any drains and stuff that might be on yours, but this one's got this here. So now I need to take this her box off. And considering the age of this bike, this is actually better than a lot of them because it seems to have all the original bolts in here, which means I've only got to use one tool to take them out, rather than a 10mm, then a screwdriver, then an Allen key, and what have you. Yes. Get rid of this. We've got a new one of these, by the way. And that brings us to this point. Now the next thing I need to take out is these. Now there are grommets that you can take out, but it's a cold day today, so if I take them out, I'll probably never get them back in again, so I'm just going to use... Yes. I'm just going to use that wobbly joint and take them out. And now they are removed, pull that off, and this should just lift off. Yes. The lad who owns this bike did actually mention that he was struggling to get this part of the airbox to seal, so he put some sealant on it, which appears to have stuck it together. And he's got a new one of them gaskets as well, so I'll be putting that in. So I'm doing this for a mate who's done me a few favours recently. He's a builder, and he uses this bike to carry his tools and everything on. And he's been doing some plastering and some bits for me, and I've never seen anyone plaster as good in my life, actually. So I owe him a couple of favours with this anyway, so let's get these carbs off. And they have sort of, yes, half done it himself. So anyway, we've got a few more bits to take off before we can fully take them out. Now this is interesting to anyone who's actually interested, which is probably no one, but this pipe here, you see this breather to the cars which goes into the float chambers. This is for the ram air system, so it takes, you have a slight positive pressure, as I've shown in other videos when I've made a ram air system on my C1. You have a slight positive pressure And if you don't have this connected, this puts that pressure into the float balls to increase the pressure differential between this side and this side. So when your carbs are working, you have suction on this end, you have a Venturi effect, which pulls the fuel in, and your fuel is sat under here at a set level that has to be really accurate, otherwise it won't work properly. And that is under atmospheric pressure, generally speaking. But when you have a slight positive pressure with the air rushing in, it puts that under slightly positive pressure and then spunks more fuel in. And that's part of the ram air system. So I need to take that off like so. And just before I go any further, I'll just push the carbs back into place, and I'm just going to run it to run the fuel out that's in the carbs, so I don't get fuel everywhere. And now that's stopped, I'm just going to put some of these that I've heard earlier in each of those, so that nothing falls inside and breaks everything. Always remember to take these out before you start to buy. Put the cars back in, make sure you take them out before you put the cars back in the trumpets. Right, so this is going to be pretty awkward to film. You're probably not going to be able to see anything, but I'll take the cables off. So the choke kill we can just hook out, pull round, and then just feed it out the side. Throttle cable, a bit more of a fuck about. Probably not going to be able to show it at all really, so I'll just take it out. If you adjust it off as much as possible, then that gives you more room to play with. Just about won't fit, brilliant. But with all the adjustments all the way in at the other end, it will just fit out, which is pretty shit. I fucking hate push-pull cables. Anyway, let's set this out of here if I can. Yes. And let's do the same for that one, which I did off camera because I forgot to press record. But to be honest, you wouldn't be able to see fuck all anyway. Now we've got some coolant lines to set off, so there's one. Generally speaking, you can just pull them off because you do get a little bit of weepage out of them, but they don't tend to keep leaking. But if they do, just take the fuel, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, take the fuel feed pipe off from the fuel pump, like so. And now the carbs should be liberated, and of course the coolant didn't stop coming out on this occasion when I said it would, so it just made me look a bit of a dick, but it usually does. Anyway, let's go and take the carbs apart. And now the carbs are off, we can work on one. And carbs are quite a sensitive piece of equipment, so you want to do this in a sterile environment if you can. So what I'm doing this is just on the just don't workshop on floor in front of the doorway. Anyway, let's get on with stripping them down. Right, so as we turn them over, I'm not touching the diaphragms because there's seemingly no issue with that. I'm just doing the Carburetor kits and the jets, which are in the bottom. I'll just show you one because it's the same for each one. And before I take them apart, something I like to do is just mark up which float ball goes on which carb, nice and carefully. So let's take one off. Now these are usually, I don't know if it shows up, they've got a little dot, focus, little dot next to the cross. That means that they're jizz screws, which is Japanese industry standard. Nothing to do with the Jacqueline on this occasion. And on the removal of that, it actually looks pretty clean, but I can see what I suspect is the problem. Look at that. That doesn't look right. That looks like the float has been set way too high. That will cause the issues that we have. So anyway, I'm going to take it all apart anyway because I have got Carburetor kits for it. I want to take these jets out, this jet's out. And so this one is a main jet. Now, if you're doing carbs on an air-cooled bike, like a 4-cylinder, you might find that the inside and the outer ones have different size main jets. This one, I believe, should all be the same size. But I'll put that in there. This one, this is your pilot jet. Now, the main jets don't usually block up. The pilot jets are far more prone to it now. Or you'll see why when I take it out. Because the hole in them is very, very small. So put that in there for a minute. Remove the float. And then this is your needle valve. That bit there is like a little bit of a rubber on it. And that's the pin that pivots on. And that works a bit like a toilet. So when a toilet fills up with water, when it fills up the float in the toilet, well, the ball cock, stops the water coming in. This does the same with the fuel. So that looks like that. This is the seat for the valve, which I've got new ones of, so let's check that out too. And apart from that screw, it's just held in with an O-ring. Now I don't need to be too careful with it, but that isn't looking great either. That can also be an issue, so let's fuck that off in there. Like I said, got a new one in there. So now I'm going to strip all these down to the same level of stripped. I didn't actually need to take that screw out when I took that float off. I don't know why I did. And I'm going to put them in sonic cleaner, like so. So we've got them all stripped down, and the jets are all out. Needle valve seats are out. Now they don't need cleaning because I've got new ones. The needle valves themselves don't need cleaning because I've got new ones. The floats don't really need cleaning because they're clean. So I'll leave them out. I'm going to put this in the sonic cleaner, this in the sonic cleaner. But first, I'll just demonstrate a little tip. If you've got a pilot jet that's blocked, there aren't really any jet guns that I've ever come across that are small enough to go through some of them. So I just use the bristle of a wire brush. Now it's not measured, it's not accurate, and it's probably frowned upon, but it does work. As you can see, that is definitely clear. And then if you hold it up to light, which you can't see I'm doing because it's off camera, and you can see a hole in it. I don't know if that's going to shut. Yeah, you can see it. Yes, like a new one. And if you have one that's really blocked, that's really actually fucked and needs replacing, but you haven't got one, you can actually stick this in a drill and then drill it onto this. But that is definitely frowned upon because you're probably going to make it bigger than it's supposed to be, but it's better than it being blocked. Anyway, let's put it in the sonic cleaner and see how it comes up. And as you can see, this fits in the basket for the sonic cleaner absolutely perfectly. Now I can't really film sonic cleaning because you can't really see it, it's underneath a load of shit, but I'll try. And I need to put these in, and when I'm putting it in, I'm going to push down on these because they will float and then tip the jets out and fuck them off somewhere. And that is pretty much how I want it, because I only want the bottom of the carbs in the solution. So let's put it on for 20 minutes and see what happens. And now that has finished, which is some lovely AMSR sort of sounds coming from it, I can remove this from here, but I won't need two hands for it. So let's go and take it back over there. And now let's have a look at what we've achieved. And it's clean. I mean, it's clean enough. So let's take that out of there. I need to get rid of all the water off everything, which an airline is going to probably be the best tool to use. So I'm just going to clean it all up. I'm not going to show any of it. And then we'll get on to the next phase. Right, so now I've given them a bit of a blow job with the airline and got them nice and dry. And as we can see, the gaskets, well, they came out when the airline was blowing on them. So put the cars back where they was, and then we'll start building them up. What's worth taking into account is there are little filters on the old needle valves. The one for number one has stayed in, so I'm not worried about that, but these will need just flicking off and putting on the new ones, which is self-explanatory really. Anyway, let's carry on. Like I said, I'm only going to show one. So we've got our jets, they can go back in first. So the main jet goes where the main jet was taken from, and the pilot jet goes where the pilot jet was taken from. and these don't have to be particularly tight, but they have to be tight enough not to fall out. Just nips up really. Right, so there's that bit. Then next, let's look at our repair kit. So this is the bit we're going to need next. So if we take that out of there, then we have a new seat for the needle valve, which sometimes you might need to put a bit of, yeah, it needs oiling. Just spray a bit of WD into there, then this should push in nice and gently. Yes. And then we use the screw that we took out to go back in, and then it holds it in place in a perfect manner. Yes. And then we can put this on, which, if we look at that there, we've got the old needle valve, which needs to be taken off. It just hooks out. Then the new one just hooks in. And if you look at the angle of that, that is looking to me like it is set way too high. I think that's actually why it's running lumpy and fucked. So let's put that in there. Tighten that up. I mean, it might not be too high, it just looks like it is. And then it seems like it's too high. Then we can set that. And this bit might be a bit harder to show because you want the carbs so that they're actually pretty level. But if you look at that there, and then we take a ruler, don't know if you can see, but that is like about 9mm, and it's supposed to be like 12 to 13. So the way we'll rectify that is we just bend this tab to make it closer. Now if it is too low, then you bend it the other way. But you bend this tab here to make it closer to the needle valve, let it settle itself, and then measure it again. It's just going to be a bit of trial and error because now it is pretty much there. I think I'll go a little bit more. Yeah, it's about 11.5, which is probably bang on, as these are the measurements according to the book. 11 to 13mm and 1.5 turns on the air screws, which have got to come out and be cleaned. And I think I've got that pretty much where I want it. But if we look at these carbs, they don't sit 90 degrees to the engine, they sit at an angle, and this point here isn't level, and when you're measuring it you want to have that level if possible. And if I do that, when you can't really see it, but it's about 11.5mm, and if I go like that you can see that it lifts up. I think that's probably how it's been measured before and why it was set too high. So anyway, next, the inside bits of this carb are done, so I can put the float ball back on. But these are always fun. When you have new gaskets for them, they never really want to seat in place while you're putting it together. They're just always the same, no matter what brand you get. I mean, that's the wrong way around, which isn't going to help, but these are actually decent brand ones, and I've never had them where they go in easily. So you just gotta struggle with it and then piss about with it until it lines up really, which it'd be more frustrating to watch than to actually do. So you probably don't want to see that. It actually went in pretty well as far as these things do go. So now I've got to put it upside down without. Sometimes it's easy to turn the carbs over, but make sure it's in all the way around. And just put the screws back in. If you've got it right, then you should feel it sort of compressing the gasket as you tighten it up. Right, so I've got to do the same for the carbs, but first I'm just going to complete one carb on camera, like I said. So this air screw, this needs to come out, and these are set to 1.5 turns, by the way. I usually do see what they set before I take them out, actually, which I'll probably do with the other ones, but because we have got a new O-ring, but in all honesty, looking at the old O-ring, it doesn't look that old. I mean, the new one's on there now. That one doesn't look that old, so I do think that these carbs have been done before, just not set up right. And that's what's going to happen again, because I'm doing it, so I'll probably fuck it up. I mean, I do this sort of shit quite regularly, but now I'm doing it on camera for YouTube to see. I will probably fuck it up. So anyway, to set this, we're tightening it all the way in until it stops. You don't swing on it, just do it till it stops. And you want to do it 1.5 turns out. So that's 1 turn and a half a turn. So anyway, that's one carb. That's done, so I need to do the same with the others, and then I'll come back when I've done that shit. And just while I'm doing this one, the other one, it was stuck inside, so I didn't bother with, but this little gauze, it just pulls off, so you just need to stick it on. So another thing to mention as well is that, for anyone who noticed, when I was setting up the air screw on this one to 1.5, it wasn't 1.5 because, well, I couldn't really see what we're doing from the angle I was at, so I've readjusted that, which you might be happy to know. And now we're nearly there. The last gasket has proven to be a proper pain in the dick, so I've just gone with the old trick of putting a bit of grease on it to hold it in place while I put it on. So fuck it, that'll do. Carbs are back together, and what I'd recommend doing now is I'd recommend putting some petrol to them, filling them up off the bike, so that if they leak, you know about it before you put them back on the bike. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to cry when they leak onto the bike. And now it has become the time to reinstall the carbs onto the bike. Now, you'll have done this. I need to undo these because if you remember, my carbs sort of fell off. But yours probably didn't, so you'll needed to undo them before lifting the carbs off. So I'm going to undo all these, and then I'm going to put the carbs back in. Now, I don't think I'm going to film much of this because it's just a reversal of the procedure of taking them off, which I've already shown. It's not going to be very easy to show or interesting to show, so I'll just come back when I've got the carbs in place and like the next part of the job. Right, and the carbs are getting into place, and these screws down here can be a bit awkward to get through them, but I mean, having an air leak on this side of the car, having an air leak on this side of the car to the airbox is, can be pretty bad. Having an air leak on the other side of the carb, that's just going to give you loads of problems, so you need to make sure that they are tightened up. And now all this is back on, we are potentially in a position where we can start the bike. Might as well put the choke on. Now, don't be too alarmed if you start it now. It's going to have to fill the carbs up so the pump will work. That's a pulses with the revolutions of the engine off the crank sensor. So yeah, it's going to have to fill them up, but don't be alarmed if it runs worse than it did, because we're still not finished setting it up. And if a bit of fuel does start weeping, the floats can stick, but I don't think they will, so let's see what happens. Right, I'm going to get it running and get a bit of warmth into it so it can run off the choke, and then we shall proceed further. And now, I've reached that point, I've got the balancing for the back gauges thumbed up to, you look on the manifold, I've got, I don't know if you can hear, I've got tape on each one. These ones have a pipe connected to them which goes to this valve, the other ones just have Johnny's on them. So I've got that connected, now I need to try and balance it, which first, don't worry too much wordy pointing, you just want to be safe really, that's the most important bit. So if we go down here, there is one icon, there is an adjustment switch. Now as we turn it, make it worse or better. middle two, something like, they're not perfect, I'll tweak them in a little bit more. This one isn't far off either. So what you do is you do the middle two together with the middle adjuster, and then you do the outer two. So then you adjust this one to this one, which is another adjuster here, and then this one to this one, which is another adjuster here, which is just, there's a little screw on it which adjusts the amount that each butterfly opens in relation to the one next to it. Basically, that's all you're doing. So I'm gonna tweak them and get a little bit better, and then when they're all somewhere in the region of fuck it, that'll do, then you can adjust your stick over. This is, well, this sucks a bit of air in. You can put my finger over it to make it a bit quieter so you can hear what I'm saying. So yeah, now I need to build it back up. And that's going to be pretty boring. And I've got to put new gaskets on here and all that, new air filter in it and everything. And I've not really got time to show it, so I'm just going to get on with it. So I've just done it off camera. I tried to do like an edit like Kevin Talbot does, but it didn't really work. I'm not very good at that sort of shit. Right, so now don't rev it too much, it's not fully warmed up. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it for this one. I do need to fill up the coolant, make sure that's full because we lost a little bit. But yeah, I think that's it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all the usual shit. See you next time.